Hello and welcome to another episode of Fintech Focus TV, powered by Harrington Starr, global leaders in financial technology recruitment. Head over to harringtonstar.com where you'll be able to see some of the greatest jobs in financial technology recruitment across the world. You'll also be able to find a host of insight to help you grow your brand, your team, your network and your career. You can see the latest financial technology salary survey. You'll be able to download the issue of the Financial Technologist, focusing on the appetite for disruption. And our latest Top 1% Workplace Awards will be out at the end of this year. If you work for a company that's a great place to work in financial technology, we want to hear from you. Enjoy the show, and I'll see you soon. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Fintech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today, I am absolutely delighted to introduce you to Rafal from PayAlly. Rafal, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you talking to me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Look, I'm excited about this episode. We just had a little bit of a conversation beforehand. There's lots of my favorite subjects to dip into. I've been reading up a little bit about PayAlly this morning and finding out a little bit more about you and your journey. And it's really interesting. So look, before I won't do it the same justice as you can, Rafal. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little about your story, and then tell us what PayAlly are doing and what made you start it.
Yeah. So my name is Rafal Andzejevski. I'm an entrepreneur with a background of international trading. Originally, I'm from Vilnius, Lithuania. I came to the UK when I was 16 for better education. So I studied A-levels here. During the studies, I worked at McDonald's and housekeeping in hotels, which actually was a very good lesson for me. What's hard work all about, right? So that really motivated me to move on with my education. But since I had to help my family, I had to move back to Baltics to graduate and from my bachelor degrees, and so that's when my business journey started. Actually, I joined my small father's company, which was dealing with chemicals in different industries. Yeah, and then I've invested in different other businesses like international trade and so on. And during my international trading career, I found out that there are very few players on the market who could actually help me with international money flow, especially in trading with different commodities or agro products. And that actually led to founding PayAlly. Yeah,
that's
so
incredible. So it's literally just going through with your holdings business, which I saw on LinkedIn. You were there and frustrated by the fact that there wasn't a solution to help you out. So that's where the inspiration for the company came.
Yeah, exactly. Because at some point of time, we had really confusing scheme of different banks around Europe, because we were trading different agro products and commodities from one country to another. Even if even in European Union at that time, there was no one solution which actually would help us, because there was still funds transfer between countries. So we had like more than 10 different bank accounts at some point of time. And that was really crazy to manage the whole cash flow, because the faster money moves, the more you earn, obviously. Yeah. So because it's a trading business, you don't produce anything, you just trade. The faster the trade, the more you earn. And that was the motive actually at the beginning, which actually grew into a really serious business, which PayAlly is right now. So in terms of PayAlly, we are a financial institution based in London, and we do a lot of stuff. We are essentially an ecosystem for cash management and different wire transfers and so on. Our main focus is on international funds transfer, foreign exchange, card acquiring, and card issuing. So very, very simply, we are fully covering all the needs of businesses which need to do it internationally.
And you were effectively the first customer of PayAlly then at the same time.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yes.
So that's a really interesting thing for me, isn't it? Because I've seen
Yeah, there's lots of different motivations for businesses, and quite often it comes out of a frustration of what's not there for the for someone who's looking to build something and to solve a problem. When you were there and building this and putting this business together, with regards to saying, right, this is my problem and I know this is here, how did that help you sort of build the product and think about the product? I guess it's the ideal thing, isn't it, from doing it from a consumer perspective?
Yes, indeed. Actually, I think it's not only about financial services, but overall and the whole, in any businesses, actually, you have to concentrate, you have to be focused on your clients and clients' needs. So in my particular case, I was client of myself in a way, right? So that helped me to understand what's really needed for me, and I was building product which was needed for me. Yeah. Obviously, that could be sold to other traders as well. Someone who is importing stuff from China, exporting it to other European Union countries, etc., etc. So that was all very, very common. And even now, after Brexit, it's still a need. And especially actually now, it's a bit of frustration going on, especially from the UK side after the Brexit, that, transactions to Europe and from Europe, it's already not within the union, right? So keeping focus on your clients' needs is the main thing. And since I have a background of real business, I call it real business because it involves real products, movements, logistics, and all of that stuff. You understand their needs, you understand their problems, and that actually helps in communicating with clients and understanding their motives, why they do one thing or another, and why they need this particular product this way, not another way. And I'm not always getting it right neither, because every business is different. But in knowing and having this businessman logic helps tremendously, because there are lots of nice products on the market, but they are not positioning properly because we don't understand who's actually going to buy it and why they're going to use it and how they're going to use it. Right. So from our perspective, from PayAlly perspective, is that we are super flexible in terms of pricing, in terms of how we build the flow, how we build our website portal for them, how we integrate our systems with their systems, etc., because that's very, very important for every business, that we are trying to be partners rather than solution providers. And when you're partnering with your clients, basically you are interested in their success, because then you will be successful as well. So that's, I guess, main point.
I love the way you say that, because as a perfect link, my business Harrington Star has a strapline underneath it, which is your success, our business. And I think that came through from a lot of conversations I've had over the last 13 years with customers, where you're just constantly looking to make sure that we're in the business of trying to make our customers as successful as possible. And I think that's sort of, and I say I do this show every single week with a whole host of entrepreneurs who've done incredible things. And I'd say the most common thread that you look at when you're speaking to every single one is they are fascinated by solving the problems that their customers have and providing a better solution to where they're going. And I think, almost uniquely your situation there, which is where you become your own first customer, I think gives you that amazing insight to be able to, to build that out. And as you touched on this a little bit beforehand, you mentioned there that the business obviously started and you sort of moved it further forward. Did you think when you first started PayAlly that they would get to this sort of size and scale and opportunity? And obviously the market, I guess, has grown and grown since you probably first pulled the thread, right?
Yeah, well, sky is the limit, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, obviously, since, even though I have a financial education, all of that stuff, it's still a different world. This is a different industry, different rules, which you have to follow, regulators and all of that stuff. But you have to keep in mind that this is still a business. It has to bring profits. I think we're way too small yet to call ourselves even big or something. I think that there is huge potential still to grow. We want to grow at least 50% a year, which is exactly what's happening during a couple of last years. And we want to keep the trend. Obviously, economic situation around the globe, overall, the turbulences, etc., they all have impact, because we are super interrelated with international trades. But that's on one hand, any challenge is a good lesson, and we're becoming more stronger, more competitive even, because we find the solutions which maybe others cannot. We try to be very flexible and agile with any changes coming to the market. And we try to see issues or problems as challenges rather than problems, right? Because it's a challenge. If you deal with a challenge, it becomes your competitive advantage, basically.
Absolutely. There's so much opportunity, I think, that these times have brought for people to sort of do things and build things. And it's really interesting you say that, because if I'm not mistaken, Rafał, you launched the business in 2017, right?
Yes.
And so when we look at the backdrop for what you're doing, you're looking at Brexit, you're looking at the pandemic, you're looking at hyperinflation, you're looking at the ever on-off recession that we may or may not be approaching into. So there's a hugely challenging 6-year period of economic difficulties and macroeconomic difficulties. And I think people either look at that and they see it as a problem, as you say, and say, right, okay, well, there's an excuse for us not to grow. But you've talked about some pretty exciting figures there in 50% year-on-year growth. You're talking about that as a challenge that you guys are navigating. And I absolutely agree. Another one of these common traits that I talk about with founders on these shows is people who are looking at it and saying, right, where's this our opportunity? So we either take it and we sit back and we play in defense mode, or we go and play in offense mode and say, right, how can we make it a better solution for all of our people? So I think that's a really interesting mindset that you bring to the business.
Yeah, well, I think if you're not a fighter in a way, deep in your soul, you cannot cope with it. You cannot be a businessman. I guess this is a driving force for should be a driving force for any business. Someone who is actually fascinated and who likes challenges and solving different problems, because that's what we're doing, right? And especially now a niche which we're working with international traders, interesting clients. Every client is different. Every client needs something a bit differently. It's quite hard for us to scale as fast as we would like, because we need to adjust ourselves to the market needs. At the same time, you have to remember, right? Like there are market needs, there are economic challenges, and then there are obviously regulators and other banking partners with whom you partner in order to provide services to the market. Because at the end of the day, you cannot deal with everything on your own. Since we are SEPA participants and SWIFT participants, we have to deal with our banks. We have to comply with all the regulations and all of that stuff. And over the years, as you said, like since 2017, regulators were more and more strict about everything. We have to monitor more and more. We have to be very careful with whom we onboard. And we have to do all the due diligence, all that stuff. And we are investing a lot of money into that. We're investing a lot of time into that. Our departments, governance departments are growing every year, which is essentially is for a business. It's you're just burning money because that does not bring any money. But at the same time, I see it a bit differently, because that's kind of an insurance that you're going to be sustainable in the long run, because you will be doing everything the right way. I don't really. Absolutely. I see it as a must-have, must-compliant thing, rather than, oh, we will deal it tomorrow, because tomorrow might never come if something goes wrong, right? So you have to be very careful. You have to weigh your risks. You have to evaluate all the problems. You have to cooperate with your banks, with your partner banks, with any other. Even, we're partnering with our financial institutions as well. And I think that through the partnerships, you can build up a better product, which you can deliver to your clients, and that's how you can bring more and more value to that product. Because at the end of the day, our model is very simple, actually. More value we bring to the client, more it costs for them, but that's normal, because if they get additional value and they understand the value in products you deliver, they will be more than happy to pay for it, right? And we're not selling anything for free. We do not promote ourselves as a challenger bank or something. We don't really want to be that. We just want to give a high quality service for a reasonable amount of money. And I think that's the biggest difference from us, comparing us to others, is that we're not fighting for number of clients. We are fighting for the turnover, for the services we use, for the income at the end of the day, because income, it just shows how much value you bring to the market, how much value you bring to particular clients. The higher the revenue, the more value you bring to the market. Because if you're doing the same stuff as everyone else, you might fight from marketing perspective. You might bring some new clients during your marketing campaigns, like offering them something for free, I know, packages, but that's not sustainable at all. I don't believe in that free packaging thing.
Yeah,
I would rather charge everything. Yeah,
it becomes a race to the bottom, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what you don't really want to do if you're a businessman, because it's. I saw a couple of examples, like when companies just went to bankrupt playing that game because they were not sustainable. They were not bringing value to the market. They were just fighting for the clients without any long-term plan, and that's really bad.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating that, and I agree. I think that what you're talking about there is having excellence as your strategy and making sure you've got a valuable product. It isn't necessarily about the most bums on seats, so to speak, but it's about making sure you get real value for both the customer and for yourselves in that sort of chain. I've got a lot of respect for the way that works out. I want to just move back to something you spoke about beforehand on your journey. So you came over here, as you said, for the education at 16. You went back to the Balkans and sort of built your business over there. You've mentioned a little bit about regulation, within the conversation you've had so far, and I think at this sort of time where we're seeing some, honestly, negative press about the UK and its attractiveness for to attract businesses into it and such like, you've got a slightly different view on that. And I know that we were talking beforehand about your sort of view of London and what the FCA has been doing, etc., etc. Expand on that for me.
I honestly think that London is a global beacon for financial services, thanks to its regulators, actually, the legal framework, all of that stuff. I honestly believe, and that's not only me, I guess, that's the majority in London, is that FCA remains global standard for any financial services. And lots of countries are copying pasting all the regulations from the UK. And because of that, I think that London is the best place to start financial service. Obviously, during the course of growing, you expand to different countries. However, the headquarters, the main center of your decision making has to be London, because it's the best place to be secure as an investor, because you've got independent judges, all of that stuff. You've got very clear political agenda. You've got independent regulators with very clear rules and understanding what they're after, and understanding that they will not, and that they are fighting for the security of the whole system rather than their own image. So this is, I think, the driving force for the UK, and it will remain like this, right? You can see it throughout the centuries almost, right? That UK London is the center of all finances of the world. And I think that's great. And that's the best place to start. You can employ any specialist from any field here in London, because we all know we have all the experience and all the knowledge, all you need.
I think it's really underestimated, that, because I'm a big believer. I used to run a magazine that we merged into a different one called the Fintech Capital, which is basically a celebration of the businesses that continue to come out so regularly out of the capital, out of London, as an epicenter of it all. And I think it's been probably pretty trendy of late to sort of downplay the UK. We've had a lot of political instability over recent years, with however many prime ministers and chancellors, etc., etc.
But that's exactly what makes it great, because even if you make a mistake, you just change and do the good choice, right? But this political turbulence, let's put it that way, was not affecting actually FCA, right? So rules were the same. FCA was totally independent. And even though prime ministers were changing, rules for financial services were the same, and they are still the same. And that's what actually, for me, as someone who's coming from Baltic states, is that something which actually attracting, and is the most important actually point, is that, let's say, in a small, young countries, politics is all over the place. Wherever you go, to any ministry you go, to any regulator you go, it's all about politics. And if head of department or ministry changes, the whole regulations are changing, right?
Yeah.
UK is a stable old country with its own culture, with its own ideas how things have to be done, and that actually intrigues me. And I think that this was a perfect example, right? Lots of different prime minister, Brexit, all of that stuff, and still it's a financial service capital of the world. I truly believe, and that's a proof actually that it's super stable.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant take on it, actually. And I actually think there's a, if you look at the next wave of what's going to be happening, I think there's a, and particularly with digital assets as a centre, digital assets and its trust continues to be the issue about its adoption. And I think if you look at anywhere in the world about where that can be validated, it would probably be the UK again, because of the regulation. And I think it struggles in the States. It's going to struggle in various other countries where it comes and goes in different waves. But if you look at what's happening with the digital pound and such like, I think there's a lot of excitement to be had, driven by the the regulation in this country. So, yeah, I think it's a great take that you've got on that. I'm really encouraged to hear people talking about this country like that. I speak to a lot of people who are there to drive it, and look, there are definite mistakes that have been made over the last couple of years. But I think that sort of stability, I think, is a really important underestimated part of what,
especially
what
if you start, if you start a business, one of the risks you want to eliminate is political instability or market or regulatory instability, right?
Yeah.
It's UK, it's a perfect place for that. That's why I said, like, if you want to start a business, global business, you have to start it from London, because then you will, this risk will be eliminated, or at least very, very low risk of any changes, huge changes to the financial sector. So starting financial business, it has to be UK. Obviously, then expansion you can go anywhere where you want, but then you've got a clear understanding how it has to be done. Very nice, competent regulator, political stability, and agenda for like 10 decades ahead. So it's pretty nice place to start. Because if you start somewhere where it's unstable, or regulator changes their rules like every 5 years, every couple of years, you will have same problems coming up again and again, and then you will be wasting time dealing with not really business stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot that can get in the way and sink people down, isn't there, on that whole thing?
Yeah.
I think one of those things has always been a sort of access to, particularly for growing businesses within the financial technology space and financial world. But one of the sort of strangleholds and things that have pulled back has been access to to investment. And I think we were speaking again beforehand about a bit of a drop off in fintech investment recently. We've seen a bit of a thaw in the marketplace. I think probably if I look back over the last couple of years, and I've seen some of the businesses that have been able to attract certain amounts of money that I sort of raised my eyebrows at, there's probably a good thing about some of that sort of investment being slowed to an extent. Someone once said to me that good businesses will always attract money, no matter what the environment. And I think that's been very much at the core of what we're talking about at the moment. But I know this is something you're passionate about as well. So talk to me about what we can expect. And despite that, you've just said there about investment into the UK and its stability, and there seems to still be a little bit of apprehension potentially in the marketplace about investment right now.
Yes, like investments to fintech has dropped, but it's still there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that the main problem on the market, on the investment side, is that before, since the quantitative easing of US and Europe, we had so many cash in the market that everyone wanted to just put it invest anywhere. And fintech seems to be a very nice industry where you can invest and hope for the best, because the idea is really cool. The problem with that is that nice young guys with nice, cool ideas start getting really, really huge sums of money. And that actually made them rather than focusing on the profitability of the business and business itself, we started focusing on valuation of those investors, of those venture capitalists, right? So to my mind, it felt that actually a nice fintech name is just, it's not a business, it's just a product, which is kind of any VC which invested into that fintech tries to sell it for higher price. And that's the business which we are making, because if we sell it for higher price, we make a profit immediately, right? And nobody really cared about their performance, whether they are sustainable at all, what's happening inside, do they have a nice culture, do they have sustainable clients, what are the plans? You know, it's all on paper, but no proof on financial reports. And I think that now everything is coming back to the basics, right? Business is about making profits. Investment is about making investments into profitable businesses rather than some businesses which hope for the best with a good business idea. But again, good business idea means that business will be profitable rather than business having lots of number of clients. Because huge number of clients does not mean that you will be successful.
Absolutely.
You know, so that's the main thing which actually is changing right now, and I'm very glad this is the case, because I was looking enviously, actually, to be honest, like some really young guys without any business at all, without any people, without team, they managed to get millions in investments and then just burn it out, just you know, like that. And I feel that this is not fair in front of investor just to burn his money or whomever money it is, right? And that's why we never chasing for investments. We never wanted to have an outside investor just to burn the money or just for the sake of having an investor, because that's trendy. So the company was funded fully by myself, and we strive to make profits and focus on the profits rather than bringing in more investments because we're running out of cash. This is not the case. And this is the main focus which every business has to have. How do you make money rather than how do you burn less or more, right? So
isn't it funny how obvious what you're saying is in you know, in an economic sense, and yet how scarce that conversation is when you're talking to people. There's as you say, trendy is an interesting word because everyone loves to go out and spend it. I started in this industry in the year 2000 and saw a sort of massive boom. I saw the companies getting ridiculous money at very young ages to spend on all sorts of, you know, ridiculous at that stage, quite frankly, your office space and such like. And then in 2000, you know, midway through 2001, 2002, we saw the bubble burst. And it's amazing how iterations of that sort of cycle continue to go through, and people fail to really focus on profitability. So what you're talking about is something that's very dear to my heart, is funded businesses that are going through there with an eye on making profit and actually doing what the job should be, which is to go out there and make profit for the shareholders, right?
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. I'm kind of in favor of investors and investing into the companies which have proven the fact that they are sustainable.
Absolutely,
that's
the critical part, right?
Yeah, and then you know exactly where the money will be going to, right? Where it will be invested. What's the purpose of investment overall, right? And I had quite a few actually meetings last year, this year, and people would like to invest into PayAlly, and then we ask, okay, how much do you value PayAlly? How much do you want really cash? I said, I don't really need cash, right? We're a profitable business. Why should I want to sell it, right? Why should I want to have another investor? Unless investors coming with some added value rather than cash, right?
Exactly
So
right.
investor has to
Exactly
bring something more than just money, right? Money is just the blood in the organism, right? It's nothing which you have to pursue in a way, right? Value like networks, clientele, maybe something else. It's something which is really, really important. And I think that we are coming to the stage where this way of thinking is becoming normal again. And people start, investors, venture capitalists, private equity funds, we all start thinking, okay, so we've got all those investments. How can we actually make those profitable, or what should we buy in order to make them profitable, or how we can help them, rather than just pump more money into it, because it does not help. You can see it from quantitative easing. It's a short-term method in order to help macroeconomics. But if you think in microeconomics, it's the same. You pump in money in, but it does not solve any issues. It's just burning money.
Burns more. So, yeah. It's a really interesting take on that, isn't it? And I think you agree. I agree with you that sometimes people don't think necessarily about the partnership. They're looking at the money, and I think that usually comes from the wrong sort of need to actually take that on. It's how quickly can we get? So everyone's in a race to get somewhere very quickly, and this is an accelerator for us, which is why we take the cash, as opposed to saying, right, as you say, the networks, the right networks, is there something there which we can do to utilize that investor? And I think those partnerships between the entrepreneur and investor are incredibly important to get right. And in my mind, the sort of catalyst, because the number of Series A and Bs that fail is staggeringly high still. And I think if we can improve that, then there's a I'm a big believer in small to medium enterprise in this country and how important it is to the growth of the overall economy. I think if we can do better to improve that scenario, then we've got a much better scenario with case to move further forward. Rafał, I said this was going to move incredibly quickly. This thing, we've been speaking now for half an hour, so I'm going to start to wrap things up with a couple of questions. One of which is, I want you to look into your crystal ball at the moment and say, look, what can we expect from the payments industry over the course of the year? The second thing I want to ask you is what that means for PayAlly. And tell us some of the exciting things that you guys are doing and what your ambitions are in the business.
Right now, we see, as you said in the beginning, we see some transformation where everyone is focusing on cryptocurrencies, all of that crypto thing. I'm maybe I will sound old schoolish, but I don't really understand what kind of problem they are solving, because like we have Swift messaging, we've got faster payments, we've got SEPA. Every country has their own clearing systems. It's all fine. It might have some speed issues, but that's because of security. That's because of regulations where you have to check what are the payments for, etc., etc. So it comes with a reason why it is so. I think that the timing is very interesting, because the situation might change one way or another, but still, business is business. We are all humans. We want to move forward, and globalization process cannot be stopped, right? It means that more and more payments will be on the market. B2B payments will be present in the market. It will be expanding. More and more businesses will be doing global stuff rather than local. So actually, it's a really good potential for any financial institution. And I truly believe that rather than trying to compete for the clients, you have to just focus on your niche, on your particular type of clients, and then try to do your best. If you think about it, we've got thousands and thousands of different banks around the globe, and they all have money, they all have profits, right? They're all doing great, apart from a couple of them, right? But the majority of them are doing great. So I think that you still have to be focusing. It's a matter of focus, right? Focusing on clients, focus on the profitability. In terms of PayAlly, we see a huge potential because last year we became principal members of MasterCard, which meant that we can issue our debit cards to our clients. We can create a co-branding programs to other financial institutions as well. So, for example, if someone wants to issue their virtual or plastic cards, more than happy to help them. They can do it through us. We are partnering with new banks all around the globe. We got a license in Canada as well. We're expanding our operations in Canada. So we are moving forward, and I think that 50% growth year on year, it's ambitious, but at the same time, it's really doable, right? And without any any outside investment. And I believe any business on the market can do the same. It's just a matter how they structure their services, how they structure their operations. And for the next 3 to 5 years, I think that there will be quite a few mergers and acquisitions going on, because less and less money is on the market just to fuel the marketing campaigns. So rather than spending and burning money on promotions, you would rather go there and buy someone who already has portfolio of clients of your niche, of your kind of interest, and that's good, because then you can accumulate client base, you can make operations more efficient, you pick up the best talents, and etc. So that's actually, only positive things are coming.
I agree. I absolutely agree with that, and I think there's a really important part of that I think that the M&A route is a classic accelerator that doesn't necessarily have to be again, going back to what we were talking about beforehand. There's more than one way to skin a cat, right? And I think if you look at that M&A piece and you see companies there's a lot happening in my sector at the moment. I know there's a lot happening in the financial services space as well. There's a lot of opportunity, and companies that have got that right over the years, I think, have really added some value to it. So, Rafal, it's a fantastic.
Yeah, there is definitely lots of opportunities. There are lots of opportunities, especially nowadays, right? With any turbulence, with any crisis, even if crisis is coming. Well, crisis is something for politicians to worry about, actually, but for the business, it's always an opportunity. There's always a time to think through whether your business is sustainable. If you need to make any actions, you have to plan those actions and try. And I think that, every business has to be flexible, even if it is a huge business, even if it's a corporate. It still has to have some elements which are super flexible in order to go hand in hand with the market, with regulators, with political situations, and so on. So flexibility, I think, is the key. And obviously the team, right? If you don't have a team, nothing will work.
Well, you're preaching to someone who thoroughly believes in that in my day job, so I know exactly what you're talking about there. Rafał, look, it's an absolute pleasure talking to you. There'll be people here who I know will want to speak to you a little bit further and find out a little bit more about yourself, about PayAlly. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
LinkedIn, I guess.
Well, you've got an invite waiting for me there. I'm looking forward to connecting with you. And to all those watching who've enjoyed what Rafał's had to say, please don't hesitate to join. Rafał, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for your time.
And thank you all for watching. We will see you soon on another episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.